This manhwa was brought to you by Manhwa by Miss Mysterious. It includes fiery passion, revenge and a saucy love story. Are you interested? Let us journey. This manhwa starts off with a teary-eyed beautiful young female protagonist. She is clearly upset by the sudden and strange turn of events that unfold moments earlier. She begs her father desperately, all whilst being dragged forcibly away. She questions just how everything turned out like this. Earlier we see that a princess has collapsed due to being poisoned. Our protagonist is trembling as she gets accused of trying to kill the princess. She exclaims to Mikhail that it was not her and all she did was get the princess. Water said she was thirsty. He tells her to stop lying and asks if she did this because he chose the princess over her. She is in shock as she murmurs his name. The crowd round them murmurs amongst each other and agree that Lady Yuve Alien is the type to get jealous and do this. They speak about a rumor that Lady Yuve Alien never got over a breakup and harassed any girl that tried to approach her ex, as Julian stands in shock. She admits in her mind that she did hold a grudge against the princess for taking Mikhail away, but never actually wanted to die. Her father then approaches her from behind. The king then explains that there is nothing to win and that Yuve Alien should be arrested immediately. In tears, she asks if her father believes in her, to which he slaps her hands away from him. He volunteers to arrest her himself. This angers the emperor, who questions how he is supposed to trust the father, since the father could also be scheming as well. He asks if the emperor would believe him if he left his own daughter in the Chamber of Shadows. This is a place where magic and sword all work. It is reserved for the worst. Criminals who commit high treason and those who enter never come back out. Jubilee unclenches her teeth as her father drags her by her hand. She realizes that by doing this he is essentially giving up on her as a daughter. She wonders how he could do this to her, but is actually not too surprised. He's been this cold to her since she was little. When she visited his chambers as a young child and told him that she missed him, he coldly told her to never come see him for that kind of reason again. This left the young Yuve Alien in tears. As she grew up, she'd always ask if her father would come to her events, to which the maids would always shake their heads. Back at the chamber, she menacingly laughs as she remembers that her father does not love her at all. As she laughs, her father surprisingly gives her a dagger to use. She wonders if he gave it so she could self-delete. He then turns around and leaves as she pleads with him not to abandon her and throw her away like this. She is then seen sitting and crying in the corner of the cage. We then hear guards shouting for the crown prince to not enter this place. This causes Jubilee to start trembling in fear as he is known for his cruelty. He has arrived to question the person who has dared harm his sister. The guards began to mention that the king has yet approved any interrogation. But the crown prince mentions he's actually here. Torture. He reassures the guards that he will not kill her as Yuve Alien is seen grabbing the dagger her father gave. When he arrives, she chooses to self-delete rather than be tortured by the prince. As she quickly readies to strike herself, she thinks to herself about how all an outcast that has been abandoned like her wanted was to be loved. He screams at her to stop. But it is too late. And so she succeeded in self-deleting. This is where the story stopped getting published. A lady is seen drinking some tea as she wishes. She could have seen the ending. Someone walks in and asks if the lady had something to say to him. He then calls her to Valuan. She mentions that he is 3 hours late and he questions if she called him over just to say that. As she continues to talk to him, the truth comes out. Our protagonist was just the reader of a novel, but somehow ended up becoming the girl in the story who would end up getting executed. She then tells the blonde man that she wants to break up with him. To his shock, the reader had become the villainous named Jubilee, and hopefully this doesn't happen to any of you guys. After hearing that he is getting dumped, Mikhail is at first shocked, but then arrogantly says that this is ridiculous. He does not believe she would break up with someone like him. Our protagonist reveals that she finds his reaction to be natural as she loves this man as much as the real Yuve Alien of the story did. Before becoming Jubilean, our protagonist was an ordinary girl who worked part-time jobs while trying to find a real job. As she was riding her moped, she got into an accident and was reincarnated as the villain to Valuan. She recently remembered about her past life 2 years after meeting Mikhail, which happened to be 4 days ago. As he glares at her, she realizes she's been acting too faithfully to the original story. She's been violent and arrogant to other people due to her position as the Duke's daughter. She had been harassing any girl that came close to her Mikhail, just like the original Bill Innes had been doing. He was the first person who had shown her kindness when she felt abandoned by the world and her father. She loved any attention she could get from him and became obsessed with him. She wanted to satisfy her desire for attention, but right now she needs to let him go. This is to avoid the impending death that awaited the original Julian and to take care of herself. She tells him it's okay if he does not believe her, but she's already made up her mind to dump him. He then turns and then tells her he believes her this time. He then tells her to never show her face to him again. She smiles as this went successfully and then apologizes for anything she did and hopes that he finds happiness. He is shocked and we see in his mind that he just thinks this is a ploy to get more attention from him. However, for some reason this time it makes him very upset. We later see Tuvaluan is relieved that the breakup went well and plans to go rest in her room. However, she runs into her father instead. She is shocked to see him do Clegg as Audrey Floyd, the only sword master in the Empire and a man who never seems to get old. He is also the one who gave her the dagger and has no love for his daughter as he walks by her. They brushed shoulders before she tells him welcome home and smiles. Knowing how he truly is, Julian would now rather have his money than love. He glares at her, which makes things very awkward. She tells him to get some rest because he must be tired from training people all day and that she will be taking her leave now. As she walks away, he mentions that there was no training today and how she is home awfully early today. Normally, she would spend her time stalking Mikhail. She then decides to tell him the truth about the breakup. He angrily grabs her and asks why. She then remembers that Mikhail is actually a loyal subordinate of her father's Jubilee and tells her father that she doesn't want to be with someone who doesn't love her. He glares at her even more menacingly than before. And she wonders if he wanted Mikhail as a stepson. However, she proclaims to her father that she'd rather be happy and with someone who loves her. With that, he turns and walks away. She is fine with him, neglecting her as her only wish now is to live a long and uneventful life. We see that the maid is now nervous as Mikhail, the only person who can control Uwe alien, is now gone. Julian is known to be crazy and the breakup might have taken her over the edge. When the maid opens the door, she finds that Uwe alien is in tears. The maid rushes over, thinking something is wrong, but it was actually just tears from a yarn. Julian tells Marilyn that she is tired and will shower tomorrow. Marilyn then burst into tears as well since she feels she has judged the Julian too harshly and thinks the breakup has gotten to her. This causes Julian to wonder if she should start being nicer to the maids. As Marilyn walks away from the room, the father overhears that his daughter has cried and requested to know everything the maid saw. A beautiful morning arrives as Uwe alien wakes up from her sleep. A maid then barges in, informing her that the Duke has asked to have breakfast with her as they eat. Jubilian thinks about how he normally never asks to have breakfast. And that she can't even swallow properly right now. He watches as she struggles to eat. Last night we see that the maid informed the Duke that the breakup came as a huge shock to the lady. In her mind, Julian thinks that her great father, who is a war hero, must look down on his daughter, who's the nobility's laughingstock with no friends as they eat. Her father asks her what she looks for in a guy. She is shocked by the question. But he responds that he is just curious. She wonders if he's already looking for another successor. She responds by saying she is looking for someone stronger than her father, to which he asks if she is serious. She then tries to play off what she said. In her mind, she is giving him unrealistic demands so he won't find her a partner. She then gives a laundry list of crazy things she wants in a guy. The Duke has no reply to this, but then ponders on it for a moment. He then tells her that he wants to go on an outing with her, which shocks her enough to drop a knife and ask why. He says for no particular reason, despite having never taken her with him on an outing in 18 years. We see the arcade SD, which is full of SD vendors trying to sell their products. Her father walks with Julian, who is carrying an umbrella down the streets. He begins acting very weirdly by buying all sorts of items. She then grabs a diamond-full rabbit and wonders who would buy something so expensive. Her father then points to buy that as well. He is buying everything. His daughter looks at Uwe Ellie and then gets bumped by a woman with a sword who then talks with her father. Julian had thought all female swordsmen were gone. As she wonders this, everyone around starts talking about Duke Floyd and if that's his infamous daughter. Julian, annoyed, now wants to be somewhere private. She then walks into the nearest store, which is an armor store, to which she is embarrassed. The owner respects her taste and to her shock, asks what she would like to buy. A guy then walks in and asks the owner how much for something. Julian then stares at the man and notices his red eyes. He also notices her as well. She wonders if she stared at him for too long and should apologize. He abruptly then asks her what she is looking at and to go away. She admits in her mind that she was staring for quite a while due to finding him handsome, but is still angry about what he said. Julian then says that what he is trying to buy is what she wanted as well. The owner asks if she is sure, to which she confidently says she is very interested. It is then revealed that the item is an armor polish, which causes Julian to get embarrassed. She is internally screaming as she says that she needs it to shine her accessories. The shop owner gets excited and says she will need a lot more to polish her whole house. He runs to check the storeroom for more as she tells him to wait. The red-haired man, annoyed, lets out a sigh. He drops a piece of gold and grabs the polish. As he's trying to leave, Alien calls for him and says that he forgot his change. The item was worth only 10 pieces of silver. She chases after him, but he stops, which causes her to bump into him. She hurts her nose and then asks if he's from around this area, since 1 piece of gold is 2 weeks worth of food for people around here. It's also worth 10 armor polishes. He does not respond as they stare at one another. The shop owner arrives carrying exactly 10 armor polishes. Alien is nervous as she does not need all 10. The owner distracts her as the man leaves the shop. Someone outside kneels down and greets him as Lord. The lady in the hood then informs the Lord that she is told do Floyd when. He gives a short reply, to which the lady asks if something has happened. She then refers to him as Your Highness. He then remembers about the girl in the shop before turning around and saying it was nothing. When Julian meets with her father, he asks her what she is carrying, to which she says they are armor polishes. The red-eyed guy had just left without them and she wonders if he has that much money to burn. Her and her father then leave to go home, and right before she goes up some stairs, we see that she is very tired. As she walks up, she stumbles before her father catches her. She is incredibly embarrassed about this and wonders why she didn't just watch her step. Her father then decides to carry her up the steps and go home by carriage. Everyone on the streets is falling at the moment. She wonders what's been going on with him lately. She asks to be let down, but he tells her to just stay still. She is confused on exactly what he's doing or wants from her. She begins to feel funny, and as he is telling her something, she suddenly faints in his arms. Her father has a shocked expression on his face as he screams her name. He hopes that this won't end up like last time. Later we see him sitting by her bedside, holding her arm and crying as he pleads for her not to leave him too. In her unconscious state, Alien finds it strange that he is calling her by name and wonders if that's him crying. She hears the words "get up" before waking up straight in bed. She hurt her head in the process and thought that dreams she had was weird. A man named Alan then asks if she is alright. He is the skilled family doctor and he tells her that everyone was breathing down his neck and even he was worried she'd never wake up. She asks how long she was asleep for, to which he replies, "For whole days." This shocks Lady Julian. The maids in tears all rush in to greet her as well. Julian sees across the room a pile of stuff and wonders what this is. The maids tell her. Many people from noble families sent gifts, hoping Alien makes a speedy recovery. Alien hardly believes this, as she is generally an outcast amongst the nobles. Her father then steps into the room and places his hand on her forehead to check the temperature. This causes her to wonder if she's still dreaming before her father tells her to get some rest. Him leaving right away made her feel like she was getting her hopes up. She believes he's still a cold-hearted guy that could care less about his sick daughter and probably only came to make an appearance. In her sick bed, Julian came to the realization that most of the gifts came due to her father's reputation and not from people actually caring about her. The maid asks if Alien will reply to all the letters, to which Alien says yes, as she must have manners. She also needs to start rebuilding her reputation due to all the evil deeds she's done in the past. The fact that she read the letters even shocks her maids. She also begins studying, realizing that he must learn how to manage her father's inheritance in the future. This is all to prepare to be independent of her father. The only issue is that she finds studying to be very boring, honestly very relatable. This made her remember why she'd been neglecting her studies for all this time. With books in her hands, she still decides to persist in order to be independent. As she walks in the room, she finds her father reading and studying as well. She says good morning in shock as she did not expect her father to be in the library with her. He coldly tells her it's afternoon. He gave her a "why are you reading that" stare after seeing she was holding a territory management book. She asks him what his duties are as a lord, and he asks back why she wants this information. She becomes nervous and wonders if her father thinks she wants to take over his estate. She smiles and says it is curiosity. She tells her to sit and she starts to feel so stressed. Despite what her doctor warned. She wonders if she'll faint again before her father asks her what 3 elements make a manor. She answers him correctly, saying the land, public order, and the Lord as she had read the whole book. She praises her shortly and then starts to quiz her for 1 hour. Throughout this she only hopes that it will end before the butler comes in to inform them that a guest has arrived. She is excited about finally getting freedom again, while her father smiles at her and gives her another book to read. She is shocked as the book is about tactics and strategies. Later at night we see her gassed out, but still has 3 more volumes left. As she rests her head, she finds a shiny pendant in the book. She walks to his study to return it, only to hear an argument. Someone is warning her father not to poke his nose into where it doesn't belong. Her father then shouts the guy's name Maximum. This turns out to be the man Juve Alien talked to at the armor shop. Juve Alien is very noisy now and wonders if they are close as her father called him by first name. She wonders if he's a knight or a mercenary. The man then glanced back as if he senses her but was barely not able to spot her. Juve Alien however now realizes he is the handsome man she ran into at the armor store. Her father then talks about how a blade is protecting loved ones, not just killing, and how Max seemingly has forgotten this principle. Max twitches and then laughs before referring to the father's master and asking why should someone carry a weakness like that. Devilian never knew her father even had a student. Her father mentions that people get stronger to make up for that weakness. Max calls this all nonsense and turns to leave Juve. Ilian is shocked as she is surprised a student could be ruder than his master. Her father then puts his hands to his heart and tells Max that one day he'll find someone precious that he'll want to protect. Julian is surprised that her father actually had someone like that, since he did leave his own daughter to die. Max then says that there is a rat here to Juve. Aliens. Shock. Julian had thought he meant an actual rat as she hates them. Max grabs his sword and prepares to take care of the situation and Julian's mind. She is glad about this. Her father says to not do that, which puts Julian in a frenzy as she just wants there to be no creepy rats. Her father then says if Max even touches it, he'll show no mercy. In that instant, Julian slips off and decides to give the pendant Leia. After she left, her father asks if he intends to keep calling her daughter even though he knows who she is. Max responds that it was dark and he couldn't tell, but Max does know there's only one person who would make his master this sensitive. Max recalls that it has been 10 years since Duke Floyd and took him under his wing and taught him to use the blade. He remembers how strict and cold his master could be. He also knows that Floyd only lets his guard down when it relates to his daughter. The father tells Max his daughter is named Juvel and lets out a warm smile. This confuses Max, who is shocked that his master would soften and weaken himself over someone like that. He angrily proclaims to himself to never end up like this. He turns and leaves a flashback plays of a sick woman in bed, asking Surly just to protect Max until he can fend for himself. At his mother's funeral, people talk about how they expected this to happen as the woman had lost the emperor's favor. They expected her son to be like a bird without wings. Now the people continue to talk about how this is a pathetic funeral for the supposed mother of the empire, and this is because his mom was a weak woman. This angers the young Max and Duke Floyd and knows about this rage since he once felt the same. However, for Floyd and his cute daughter prevents him from ever becoming a monster. He believes Max will someday find someone like this as well. Covered up in a blanket, Julian tells her maid that there are rats in the building. The maid reassures her that she'll let the butler know about this. Julian wants them all captured so they don't breeding and infest the place. Someone informs the Duke that Julian is worried about something and that they have been trying to find the rats but have had no luck. The Duke lets out a blank face. He then realizes that his daughter must have had a misunderstanding and notes that there are no rats to catch. The father then asks about if the list of potential suitors for Juve Alien is done, to which the butler says tomorrow. The butler also notes that Mikhail has sent another letter, which leads to Chloe and angrily wondering what Mikhail could possibly want. He asks the maid what he wants, to which the maid says Mikhail is pressuring Julian for a reply. The maid talks about how Mikhail is taking to Valuan's behavior and rejection as a desperate attempt for attention, and appears to be talking down on her Chloe, and then tells the butler to ensure no letters reach his daughter. The butler says he'll tell the servants. To which Florian says he wants the butler personally to get all letters burned the instant they arrive. Later I maid joyfully exclaims to Juve Alien that the rat has been caught. She asks if that really happened. The maid continued to say there was only one that slipped in and it's been captured. Juvenile then continues to enjoy her cookies and drinks, gleeful that she can go inside. Now she's been staying outside the house due to this rat the whole time. The maid then says there are letters for 2 billion before handing them over. It was from the El Arlo household, so she thinks it's a reply to her letter. It was an invitation to the youngest daughter Rose's birthday. This is a close confidant of the princess and is someone who later tries to bring Juve Alien down. They're currently on bad terms and she ponders about the party being 3 weeks away. She then calls for her mate to bring flowers, ribbons, and more cake. We later see Rose is delighted by a beautiful letter stating Julian will be at the party. She is shocked that Julian personally made this for her and how beautiful it is. She flops around bed in excitement as she didn't even expect a reply to the invitation. In reality, Rose idolizes Juve Alien and thinks she looks like a doll. She would always call for Juve Alien's attention, but Julian would always be focused on Mikhail. This is all in the past and now she wants to give Juve Alien a reply immediately while still flopping around in bed. Julian is surprised that there is another reply, however. She finds it adorable how Rose copied the decorations for the letter. It is far too long though, as Rose wrote 10 pages reading the letter. Though Juvenile realizes how large the party will be misinterpreting the situation, the maids start crying and are happy Jubilee and is thinking about what to write back to her first friend. The story then pans to high society. A group of ladies are talking about Lady Floyd and how it appears she's grown up based on the letters she's been writing. Others argue there's no way she changed and reminds everyone to remember what she did in the past. Someone else replied that Julian actually accepted an invitation and didn't ignore it this time. The others are shocked as Lady Floyd and never goes to imperial banquets. We see that Mikhail is overhearing the conversation in the background. He adjusts his suit as he hears about El Arlo's birthday party. The ladies then talk about how Juve Alien has started a trend of sending letters with flowers and ribbons. We see Mikhail clench his fist and mutter Early Arlo before turning and walking away. Later, after McKay arrives at home, he adjusts his suit and tells his butler to send a letter notifying that he will be attending the party. He then asks if there are any letters being sent back to him lately. The butler says no and asks if he is expecting a letter from someone. Mikhail responds no and says the butler can leave after the butler leaves. We see Mikhail very angry as he smashes his cup of tea. As she is ignoring his letters, he assumes she must be very desperate for attention and we see that his hand is blooded up now. He declares that he will make her regret doing this. Later we see that Lady Juve Alien is going out to find a present. This scares the common folks as her father has assigned so many guards to protect her. He would not let her go out with night escorts, but sent a horde of them. They act like bodyguards, keeping people away from her despite in her mind wanting a normal life. They come to a dingy building to which the guards ask if she's sure she wants to be there. She then tells Geraldine, her cousin, to show respect and that she's sure about this place. The guards see a better shop nearby and wonder about her taste in things. Inside we see a gloomy building with a creepy guy staring at the ground. He tells them that he cannot make anything in his state and to go next door. She then walks up to Ian Theodore and tells him she wants something made. Her beauty dazzles him as he wonders why she wants him to do it. She says he is the only one capable of what she wants as he blushes and reiterates that he cannot make anything in his state. She says she believes in him, which gets him emotional. She tells him that if he makes it, she knows it will be better than anyone else's. Believe in you rings an Ian's ear and angels fly around him. Julian declares he will be the best craftsman in the empire. Tears rolled down his cheeks as he says something got in his eye. In reality, she knows that he is in a slump right now due to the pressure of carrying on the family business. But in 6 months' time he'll make a necklace for the princess. So great people call him the best craftsman do. Villian deviously smiles as she wants to get him on her side before his stock goes up. He then turns around and asks what she wants. She says of course. Anne is now expecting a masterpiece at the house. Sir Floyd is told the list is complete and checks over it. He is surprised to see the brat Max his name on there and tells Derek to remove the name. Someone then comes in the door to say that the Emperor is requesting Duke Floyd's presence at the palace. Immediately after giving in the project, Juvenalian wonders if she should go shopping for herself. It is however very uncomfortable with all the security. She then spots jewelry pieces and thinks they'd be great for her father. She then decides to get this and return the pendant at the same time as well. Then someone steps behind her and calls her. He has green eyes and a devious smirk. This man is Mikhail's cousin who also loves gossiping. Radiant Royal is also known as the Serpent's Tongue. She refers to him as Serge Royal, to which he asks if she is saying that due to breaking up with Mikhail. He grabs and kisses her hand, telling her to call him Radian. His smile irks Julian. She decides not to say anything, as Radian is likely doing this for a reaction. She then removes her hand and says she needs to be somewhere else. He tries to talk to her again, but a guard steps in the way as she grabs the box of jewelry. Radian lets out an even more devious smirk. Radiant ponders about how she is hardly broken up with Mikhail and is already getting cufflinks for another man. He wonders how Mikhail would react to this news. We see that Duke Floyd is getting Max's name removed from the list of suitors before a man arrives telling him that the Emperor is requesting his presence immediately. The setting is called Ash's Empire Palace. The Duke asks His Majesty about what he needs. The Emperor responds that there was a rat within his palace, and he would like his most loyal servant to handle it personally. The Emperor also mentions that they have caught a rat before, but it self-deleted before they could get any info. He wants Floyden to stay in the palace by the Emperor and investigate. Duke Floyd agrees and says he will stay here for a few days. The Emperor smiles and says he is relieved to have Floyd by his side. Outside, Floyd's men ask if he's sure he'll follow the order, as he may have to stay for a long time since the rat left no evidence. The Duke tells them to watch their mouth as they may get put under suspicion too. We see that Max is hiding in a tree with a bird on his head. He thinks to himself that his master could have crushed that scum whenever he wants, but chooses to let him live. He is disappointed that his master would let the Emperor use his weakness against him. One of Floyd's men lets him know the escort of his daughter was a success. He continues to say that his daughter went shopping for Rose's birthday and seems excited about it. Floyd is noticeably happy, as he says, "I see." Max continues to ponder to himself about why Julian is so precious to him and if it's because she's family. Max thought at one point his master was willing to destroy anything in his path, but now knows his master is vulnerable due to Julian. He's shown his weakness, so the Emperor uses it as a tool to manipulate him. He thinks what his master said about people getting stronger to protect those they love is nonsense. He then decides that maybe he'll understand this if he sees it for himself. We later see Radian greeting his cousin Mikhail. He is acting very gleeful as Mikhail asks what he wants. Radian says he has good news and would like tea. Mikhail just tells him to say what he wants. Radian then says that Mikhail is so cold, and that it's no wonder Tuvaluan left him for someone else. We then see Mikhail pause before angrily asking where he heard that from. Radian then says he saw her buying cufflinks with his own two eyes. He then repeats that they were cufflinks and asks Mikhail if he knows what that means. Cufflinks are for people who are very close between a couple. That means you are mine. Radian deviously smiles and talks about how this is great news, since Mikhail was worried she didn't really want to break up with him. Radian then asks a maid to get tea, but Mikhail tells him to leave and to get out if he's done talking. Radian then leaves sarcastically, saying sorry for ruining the mood. We later see that Mikhail seems to be going insane with rage. He thinks she has already found someone else, despite at one point saying she'd never love anyone else. He then slams the table, injuring himself in the process. He wants to make her pay for making him look like a fool. We later see Juve Alien is at home by herself, wondering if her father is home late again. The maid sees this and says the Duke will be coming home in a few days as he is busy with training. The maid thinks Julian misses her father, but she actually just wants to give him his pendant and gift to get it over with. Later Julian is seen sleeping after reading the book her father gave her. We see someone step into her room as she is fast asleep. The maid calls for Julian and asks if she's alright. She is being restrained by Maximum. He wants her to tell the maids to leave, to which the alien then tells her maid that she is just up reading. This causes them to leave. She then asks Max to lower his sword as she has already told the guards to leave. She then tells him that he's barged in with no permission and doesn't get why he's mad. She continues to start speaking but yawns as she is very sleepy. He is shocked that she is yawning in this particular situation, but she couldn't help it. He moves his sword as he asks her what she is doing. She then tries to cover up the fact that she is laughing. She then acts cool and serious, saying that she is sleepy and he just woke her up. She tells him to go home. He stands his silence before saying that he doesn't have a home. She then stares at him and then in her head thinks that he might actually be a mercenary. She asks him if he is just traveling around, to which he nods his head yes. She then thinks in her mind that mercenaries are normally living in inns. Then she imagines him as a homeless person. She then thinks that he must have been kicked out and now has nowhere left to go except to her father as she thinks he is clearly irritated. She also thought about how the last time he came, no servants welcomed him, so he was not an official guest. She thinks he may have gotten lost and ended up in her room and is unsure what to do as her father is not here. She then tells him that since he has nowhere to go, he can stay here. This makes him visibly confused. She thinks she'll have to take care of her father's guest as he is not here. She then grabs him a pillow and some blankets. She tells him not to thank her and pay her back when he gets rich and famous. She then says she's going to bed and he should as well. She then fell asleep as he stood there. He is terribly confused and wonders what in the world she is doing. He realizes that she is actually asleep and wonders why she isn't scared. Most people are scared or pretend to not be and suck up around him. He then mentions that her eyes for a moment seem detached from everything. As he stares, he tells himself to not overthink this. She is an obstacle in his way and he should take care of it. If he can eliminate her, his master will no longer have the Emperor controlling him. Then they can take out the Emperor like how the Duke and Max had always planned together. As he reaches over to her, he notes that she is sleeping without a care. Staring at her makes him sleepy as well. He is shocked at himself as a warrior should never get sleepy, especially when death is always around the corner. He tells himself he cannot fall asleep here, but then decides in his mind only for a little. In a dream, Julian sees that a dragon is destroying the town while everyone, including herself, runs from the danger. As an explosion occurs, she falls to the ground and covers her ear and defeat her father then appears furious at the beast for hurting his daughter. As they face down, Jubilian is shocked into waking up. He realizes it was all a dream, and an odd one at that. She turns in bed and happily thinks having a dragon dream means she'll have a lucky day. As she looks across the bed, she sees the face of Maximum. This shocks her as she wonders why he is sleeping in her bed. As he continues sleeping unbothered, she wonders what is going on. She then can't bring herself to wake him up either as he is sleeping so peacefully. She tells herself that nothing actually happened and says that she can just explain this as him wanting her bed. She then continues staring at him and notes that he is quite a looker despite being so rude. She then has a thought that if people found out about this, they think she kidnapped him. She then realizes she needs to wake him up. As she moves her hand to do so, he grabs it and pulls both of them over the bed. He then asks her what she thinks she's doing. They both stare at one another. She then annoyedly tells him he must have had great sleep considering how lively he is this morning. He then hilariously is shocked he actually fell asleep and says that this is impossible. She is disgusted by how ungrateful he is. Even after she allowed him to stay in her room. She notes that he barged into her room, took her bed, and now is acting rude and innocent. She is now done being nice, but then realizes something. Max then stares at a laughing Jubilian who can't get over the fact that Max is so similar to someone. It turns out to be a black cat she knew when she was younger. The cat used to come into a room whenever he wanted and sleep on her bed. She then envisions Max with cat ears and can't stop laughing while thinking about it. They then hear a maid outside asking if Julian is awake. Julian realizes that she needs to calm down as she can't let her servants see her like this. She then tells Max to follow her as if he was a kitty and shoves him in a cabinet. She tells him to not make a sound. She continues that this is so people don't get the wrong idea about them, such as maybe people thinking they were mating. He gets ready to shout at what she's saying, but she covers his mouth so no one can hear. This light sound, however, then gets the servants to wonder what's happening inside and reach for the door. She calls for Juve alien before slowly opening the door. She then wonders why the door is locked. We see that Juve alien is covering his mouth, telling him she doesn't want anyone to get the wrong idea. She then says that if he wants to stay here, he needs to work with. He lets go of his mouth as he nods. She then smiles and says that this is better and that he should have said yes from the start. She then pats him on the head. He is clenching his teeth as he tries, telling her not to touch his head. The maid calls for Juve alien, to which she says she is coming. The maid comes in and says she thought something happened as the door is never locked. Tuvaluan says it was locked as she thought someone might barge in. The maid laughs and asks who would do that. Not even thieves would go in the Floyd house. Julian laughs and thinks in her mind there is someone crazy enough to do it. Julian then says who knows, especially since her father isn't here at the moment. The maid then thinks Jubilee and is nervous since the Duke isn't around, while Julian thinks to herself that Max better not make any noise they made, then grabs her hand saying the Duke will be back soon and not to worry and go get some fresh air. The maid then notices a mark on her hand and shouts about her wrist. Max is sitting, wondering how long he has to stay in the cabinet. He then thinks about how strange Tuvaluan is laughing when she should be scared. He spends 20 minutes in the box and wonders what she is doing. He then hears her say ow and make some strange noise. He then thinks that she is mating with someone. He wonders what he is doing, getting dragged around by a woman. As he goes to open the cabinet, he hears the maid talk about medicine. He then gets mad thinking she is acting hurt when she is completely fine. The maid talks about how it looks painful, all the bruises Juve alien has. He then gets confused that she is bruised. Jubilian then says that it's her fault as she fell out of bed. He then thinks back to what happened previously. He then realizes that she must have gotten hurt. Then he clenches his fist and thinks the strong live and the weak die. He then seems to question if he actually thinks this. Julian later walks to the door and he knows she is on the other side. After the door opens, she tells him he can come out now. Max is visibly blushing and then Julian asks if he's hungry. He asks her if she actually wants to eat with him. He continues to ask her why as she gets confused. She then says that food is always better when you eat with someone. She then grabs his hand and pulls him along, mentioning how great her head chef is. He is blushing even harder and his chest begins to be louder. He is shocked as the breakfast she was talking about turned out to be cucumber sandwiches. He actually hates cucumbers more than anything. Julian asks him why he isn't eating. He wonders if he's actually about to put them in his mouth. His plan beforehand was to get rid of his master's weakness and then leave. She stares as he begins to munch on it. She then gleefully asks him how it is as he struggles with the food. He nods his head in agreement. He wonders to himself what he is doing here with her. Julian then says she is relieved as she was unsure if he would like it. His heart continues to beat as he thinks in his mind that cucumbers aren't actually that bad after all. At the palace, we hear someone talk about how much gossip the castle has. He is surprised that even he knows Duke Florian is protecting the emperor. He walks and tells the guards that he is here to see the emperor. He thinks that people will eventually turn on the emperor like last time. The guy is Prime Minister Duke Helios and he asks the emperor if he intends to keep the Floyd. And as his guard the emperor says of course since Floyd is the best hunting dog. We then get a backstory. There was a battle between the kingdom of Asset and Tegeria. The emperor was forced to escape the palace and retreat. However, one man stepped forward to fight the invaders and defend the kingdom. The public saw that there was a coward and a war hero in the empire. This is the current empire and the Floyd household. In the prime minister's mind, he knows that people wanted him dethroned, but only stopped because Lee just showed support for the emperor. Most people still think of the emperor as a coward. The Prime Minister then says giving Floyd in this useless task will make people hate him more and it's best to set a trap for the assassins. This angers the Emperor, who tells the man to leave. The Prime Minister then pleads for him to just bring the Crown Prince back if he wants to keep the Duke in check. He then says he hopes the Emperor makes the right decision before leaving. The Emperor is angry as the man leaves since he hates being told what to do. He stares at his hand and says Floyd will never disobey him as long as he has these. Julian is then seen yawning. As she is reading her book, she realizes she is sleepy due to just eating. She then stares at Max, who is relaxing. She pouts as she is annoyed he is in her favorite couch to lay on. He asks her what she is looking at, to which she says he looked very comfortable. She then wonders when Max will leave and wonders if it's when her father gets back. He then asks again why she is staring, to which she says she is wondering if him and her father are very close. He then says they are on bad terms. She disagrees, as she had seen how gentle he was talking to Maximum. She then remembers she needs to give her father the pendant and cufflinks. She continues thinking, to which Max asks her to spit out what she wants to say. She then asks what he thinks about giving cufflinks as a gift. He then is shocked at the mention of a present. She is blushing and wonders if her father would hate it. She covers her face with the book and wonders why he isn't saying anything. The book is yanked from over her as he asks who the present is for as he stands directly over her. She notes that he moves so quickly. Then sarcastically asks him who else would she have gotten the cufflinks for. She thinks that Max obviously knows that they are for her father. Max himself starts to think back to when he would hear about Lady Floyd and being heavily infatuated with Mikhail and carelessly ruining her reputation. He then wonders if she is going back to that guy. He thinks she is foolish and asks if she is giving it to that poor excuse of a man. I agree with his judgment on Mikhail, by the way. Julian, not realizing who he is talking about, gets very angry and thinks Max is going too far. Max wonders why she is still taking Mikhail's side despite Max trying to help her. He tells her that she has no self-respect clinging to someone who doesn't even like her, which makes her glare at him. She then tells him she is not clinging and just wants to give a gift so they can get along. She also says it's because he is her father. Max stands in silence, computing the situation before asking her if she's talking about her father. He then lets out a funny smile as he finally grasps the situation. Now Julian is the one confused. She then stares at him while he laughs and then asks what's so funny. He then clarifies that she is gifting cufflinks. He then tells her it is a horrible and useless gift for a swordsman. Julian then sarcastically says he must be great at picking gifts. He then remembers back to when he got his father a gift. It turned out to be an arrow shot aimed at the head. Julian asks him what it was before. He tells her to mind her own business. She dejectedly says okay. Max then says Duke Floyd will like any gift as long as it's from his daughter, which Julian completely doubts. She then notes she wouldn't have asked for Max's opinion if it was that easy. Max then wonders if she even knows how much her dad loves her. Julian is seen dejected and decides to give the gift anyways as she already got it. Max is so shocked that his master is sacrificing so much for his daughter and she doesn't even know a damn thing. He finds this unbelievable and calls this a joke and a pitiful relationship. We cut to her father hanging out on a tree. A bird lands on his shoulder and begins to pick at his hair. He lets it land on his finger before telling it to leave. He realizes that it won't go and begins to remember about how his daughter would be scared of small animals. Just then a man arrives calling for the Duke, Sir Floyd, and asks what it is before the man says there is news from the manor. He barely utters the word Jubilee and before the Duke is fully alert and leaves the tree, he tells the man to speak and asks if anything happened to her. The man tells him that nothing has happened to her and then says that it is just that Julian is acting anxious lately due to his absence. The Duke wonders if his child is looking for him. He thinks in his mind about how his daughter never missed him before. He seems to be very shocked as he mutters her nickname. He then has the most wholesome smile streak across his face. This smile lasts for a while and leaves the other man in shock. He straightens up as the man continues that Julian seemed sick and too depressed to leave the room. This saddens the Duke and he clenches his fist as he's had enough. He then tells the man they're going to see His Majesty. We cut back to the Floyd Manor as Juve Alien is writing her father a message to which Max says she does not need that. She tells Max that she cannot just hand her father a gift and nothing else. He insists to her that her father will like her gift even if she doesn't do anything else. Julian, however, continues trying to write and struggles as she has never been close to her father. So she has no idea what to say. She then decides to ask Max what he talks about with her father for some ideas. Max stares and is disgusted as he remembers all the times his master would talk about his daughter. He then decides to tell her that he does not know since he and her father don't talk much. Duvalion thinks Max is of no help and decides to do it on her own. She is excited after finally finishing in 1 hour, and Max is shocked that she's actually going to send what she wrote. The whole thing is an apology letter. She then says she's going to leave it for him in his room, and before she goes, she makes sure that Max knows what to do if someone comes in. Max is still shocked at what Juve alien is doing, but thinks it will be fun to see his master's reaction to that letter. Back at the Imperial Chamber, the Emperor is telling the Duke that it has been 4 days since he told him to find the mastermind rat. He then questions why there is no news yet. The Duke apologizes for not having found the problem yet. To which the Emperor says this is unacceptable and that the rat should have been caught by now. In the Duke's mind, he thinks about how Max called his daughter a rat and now his own father is calling him a rat. The Duke had known Max was behind the attempt on the Emperor's life and knows that Max is trying to make a rift between him and the Emperor. He remembers back to when Max asked if he was afraid to, which Floydin notes that he is not. He notes that he has not attacked yet, since the time is not right. He then gives a death stare at the Emperor, which causes the Emperor to flinch. The Duke then assures the Emperor that he will not get attacked again. The Emperor questions why he is so sure, to which the Duke says that he has strengthened the guards and that no one would gamble again with all the attention this place has now. The Emperor is angry, believing the Duke is making excuses for his incompetence. The Duke then says that he will stay 1 more day, to which the Emperor asks for a few more. The Emperor then remembers back to when an advisor told him to bring the Crown Prince back to the palace in order to keep the Duke in check. The Emperor then remembers that the Duke hasn't reacted to his weakness in a while. He then decides to put another leash around the Duke's neck by bringing the prince back in. We cut back to Juve alien who decides to leave the gift in her father's study since he is a workaholic. She then enters his study, which turns out to be large and grandiose. She then is glad he isn't here at the moment, as giving the gift to him face to face would have been very hard. She decides to leave it on his desk. As she does so, she sees an open book on the table. It was a list of suitors with names crossed out. She then sees that the Crown Prince's name is circled in the book, which causes her to drop her gift. In her mind, she is reminded of when she was in the cell and when the cruel Crown Prince came. She is so shocked as she is worried her father wants to marry her off to that Crown Prince. She is trembling as she remembers when her father asked her about what she looked for in a man. And how she gave him the most unrealistic list. Maximilian Kashanache is the Crown Prince and a person who fit all the unrealistic criteria she gave. He is also, in her mind, a manic willing to take anyone out. He is a depraved villain, always trying to take his father's throne and the worst psychopath in the novel. This is all alleged by the way she then remembers back to when he was going to torture her. She continues to tremble and questions why her father would marry her off to someone like that. She assumes that her father just wants to be a part of the royal family and wonders how her father could do this to her. She then screams in anger at her father. We cut to Max, who was staring at the door and waiting for Juve alien to come back. He begins to wonder about why the room is so large and what could be taking to Bailey and so long. As Max, it hears a rustling in the room. He then reaches out to grab the person hiding in the room and asks what he is doing. The individual pleads with Max to let his neck go. As the man struggles, he begins to spill. The madam sent him to Floyd's manor as she expected Max to be here. Max then lets go of the man as he slips to the floor with a thud. Max then asks the man what he wants. The man then kneels and says that the Emperor has been making suspicious movements recently. Max deviously says of course the Emperor is acting weird, especially after what Max gave him as a present. The man then insists that this was not the only reason the Emperor is actually speeding up preparations for Max's return due to pressure from the other nobles. Max then lets out a stern stare as the man then offers Max his sword and says that he is needed urgently. He then refers to Max as Your Highness Prince Maximilian. Julian has now decided to walk back to her room. She is adamant about not being sold off by her supposed tyrant of a father. She decides she must change her father's mind about the marriage by making an excuse to avoid having to meet the Crown Prince. She needs to come up with a plan, but decides that she cannot let her father know that she is aware of his matchmaking. She is shocked and looks around, wondering where he went. She wonders if he has gone into hiding as a maid may have come in. She whispers that she's back and scrambles through the closet. She asks if he's still here as she looks around. She really wonders where he went, especially now that she's already got so much to think about. She then notices a letter on the table. The letter from Max is super brief and tells Julian to not go looking for him and that he will return when the time is right. Julian notes that a cat probably has better handwriting than this. As she stares at the letter, she finds it sweet that he's willing to come back. However, she finds this too sudden and wishes he could have said goodbye to her in person, and Max and the man he spoke with are now riding through a forest on horses. As he travels, he wonders to himself if Julian read the letter he left. He then wonders why he even wrote a letter. He then stares at the guy behind and Loki wishes that the man didn't come and make him leave the Floyd Manor. He then sits on the horse and stares at the Floyd Manor from atop a hill. The man begins to question the prince about why they stopped, but then Max interrupts him and says that they will be taking a shortcut. He decides to leave the manor for now, as he needs to resolve the issues at hand. Later at the Floyd household, Juve alien wakes up from her sleep. She wonders why it is so bright right now and why her father's student didn't wake her up earlier. She then sees the letter and remembers that he is no longer here. She then wonders why she is even worrying about him when she has her own issues to resolve. She had fallen asleep after trying to come up with a good idea last night. She then glances over at the table with the gift and the pendant. She then believes that her father must be very angry about her not returning his pendant up until now and decides she needs to return it quickly. She realizes that she has a lot to do and that a new issue keeps coming up every day. She lets out a sigh as we see the maids discussing how Julian used to be carefree but now won't leave the room. They also note that she is continuously staring out the window and believes all this is due to the Duke not being home. A maid begins to cry, seeing how Jubilian seems more miserable than ever today. The maid then approaches Jubilian and says the weather is great. She asks Julian if she'd like to go out for fresh air, as it may make her feel better. Jubilian then ponders about that for a bit before agreeing to go. The maid then reminisces about how a young, lonely Juve alien would always beg for her father to be home. And then starts tearing up. The maid then grabs Julian and says that she will always be by her side. Later, we see the maid serving Julian a drink outside, along with a lot of other sparkly desserts. The maid gets shocked that Julian's favorite dessert is missing from the tray and then rushes to get it for her. Julian tries to tell her that it is okay, but the maid is long gone. Jubilian then decides that this might be for the best as she does need time to think to herself. She has to solve the pendant and suitor issue with her father. She knows that must solve the current problems at hand now as more issues may continue to pile up, but is unsure about how she is supposed to handle it. As she sits, she hears someone say, "There you are." Julian looks up and sees her father walking towards her. He stares at her as she has a shocked expression on her face as he walks towards her. She is completely shocked that he is back already since she expected him to return ages later. She then awkwardly welcomes him back. She then mentions that he must be done with work early and tired after finally getting home. She is still very flustered and mutters a bunch of things before he calls her name. This causes her to be silent and focused as her father then tells her that from now on he will never leave her side. She is completely shocked and silent as he continues to stare at her. She then comedically wonders what the frick is going on. She continues wondering why he is acting like this as her father begins to tell her that he rushed home and has not eaten yet. He then asks her if she has eaten yet, to which she says no. He then caringly lectures her to take care of herself and to not skip meals as she may collapse. In her mind, she assumes he does not want her to collapse and wants her to stay healthy so that he can marry her off to the crown prince. She then imagines him pressuring her to never collapse again. In reality, the Duke steps closer towards his daughter and tells her that they should go eat. She is shocked that he is grabbing her by the hand. She continues to be shocked as he walks her back to the house. She is then all of a sudden reminded of when he dragged her by the hand to the dungeon. She then realizes to herself that she can never expect kindness from her father. She used to follow him blindly so that he would love her, but not now. Things are different later at dinner. She finds it super awkward that they are having dinner right after he returned home. As she eats, he asks her about the party she will be attending in 1 week. She then tells him about how she was invited to Rosemary's birthday party. Her father then asks her if she has a partner that will be attending with her. In her mind, she knows that she has not found a partner yet and thinks he might use this as an excuse to set her up for marriage. She then decides to mention to him about how she has gotten many letters from incredible people asking to be her partner and that she has not decided who yet. Her father then stares at her and says, "I see." As he sips his wine, Julian wonders if her plan worked. She then decides to eat quickly so that she can actually go read the letters she mentioned. Later, her maid, Marilyn, presents her with a large stack of letters of dudes asking to be Jubilian's partner. As she goes through the list, she realizes that these people aren't half bad. She thinks that she'll be able to solve this issue pretty quickly thanks to her father's reputation and people wanting to be her partner. She wonders for a bit about who she should pick before she tells her mate to send out a letter to someone tomorrow as it is late. The moment that maid leaves the room, the Duke is waiting and asking about his daughter. He then glares at the letter in the maid's hand and asks if his daughter has chosen a partner. The maid mentions Uwe Elian has chosen Earl Rowane's son Sir Edmund. The father then asks about this guy's reputation, to which the maid fangirls that he is handsome and wonderful. Sir Floey and stares coldly before the maid imagines how great Juvali and an Edmund would be together. As she opens her eyes, she sees that the Duke is gone. Later at Earl Rowane's residence, we see that Edmund is quaking in his boots as he wonders what Floyd is doing at his place. Edmund then questions Floyd about what he is doing at his place in the middle of the night. The Duke continues to stare as Edmund continues to fidget more. As he glares up and down at the guy, he remembers what his daughter said she wanted in a man. He puts his cup of tea down, stands straight up, and tells Edmund that he is unqualified. In the morning, Juvalin's maids arrive, telling her that the item she ordered from the workshop has been completed. She is relieved, as she had been worried it might not be finished in time. She reads the letter Ian had left before the maids all gasp in awe of the gift and ask Tbillion what it is. She then closes the box and tells them that she'll tell them more about it later. At that moment, there was a knock on her door, who turns out to be butler Derek. Derek informs Jubilee and that Rowane has visited the manor to reply to Julian's letter. Tbillion ponders about why Edmund came in person to do this. She then decides that this is for the best as they should get closer before attending the party as partners. She goes downstairs to where Edmund greets her. She then welcomes him to her house while the maid tries to remind Julian that she is not in the correct reception hall. Julian notes that Edmund is great looking, but not as much as Mikhail. She then thinks about her father's student and about how he was handsome as well, but unfortunately also very rude. She then hopes that he isn't skipping any meals. She then hears Edmund talking to her and apologizes for forgetting that they were in a conversation. He then tells her that he will now explain the reason for his visit. Julian is completely shocked as Edmund then gets on his knees and begs for forgiveness. He tells her that he thought Uwe Alien had already gotten a partner. So we chose to be partners with someone else. Julian is shocked before she questions him about why he thought she had a partner already. Why? He then mentions that there is a rumor going around that she is seeing someone and that he was actually very shocked when he got a letter from her. This shocks Julian, who wonders why people thought a shut-in like her was dating someone. She thinks about how ridiculous this rumor is and wonders if someone saw her father's student sneaking into her room. Julian then says this is ridiculous as she has been recuperating in her home this whole time. Edmund continues to beg for forgiveness as Julian says that it is fine and that she will be looking for a different partner. She then is glad that at least now she knows about this rumor and can't wait until she finds out who started it. Edmund is very appreciative of her forgiveness and calls her an angel. He talks about how if he wasn't unqualified, he chased her down to the ends of the earth. Julian then wonders what he means by unqualified. Edmund then asks if they can still have dinner together. As he hands her a rose behind the window, we see the Duke giving Edmund a death stare before Edmund asks for forgiveness again and says he must head home. Julian wonders what's wrong with Edmund as he runs away and her father stares at them both from behind the window. Later at Salon Blooms, we see the upper class spending time together. Max is standing in the corner by himself. The upper class ladies at the table ponder about how splendid El Arlo's party will be as Max sips wine. The ladies talk about how they are honestly more interested in who Lady Floyd is going to the ball with. They talk about how most people are attending to see Lady Floyd and who she chose to date after dumping Mikhail. Max begins to walk away as they continue to discuss about how Lady Floyd and maybe seeing someone she can't let people know about. A glass of wine shatters on the floor as the ladies then stare at maximum silence ensues before Max asks them if spreading false rumors is so satisfying. One lady shouts that there was a witness. Max then asks her if she saw herself. She then talks about how it doesn't matter if she saw it or not, the rumors will still spread due to how Julian conducted herself in the past. Max continues to glare at her as he asks her if she can say this in front of Jubilee and herself. The lady gets silent before turning around and leaving. Everyone else turns their heads around as well. Max then steps on the glass of wine before noting how sickened he is by this. He then frowns and wonders why he is getting so annoyed by this. Max sits in a chair before the owner of Salon Blooms. Madame Frisia greets him, noting that it's rare to see him here and asking if he heard something interesting. He says that what he heard makes him never want to return and that the quality control in this place is a mess. The owner tells him the quality has never changed at this place and refers to him as Prince Maximilian. The madam asks him if the news about Lady Floey and is not to his liking, to which he calls it slander and not news. The owner notes that she has to know everything that's going on around these parts or else her business would go under. She then asks him why he is so worked up, as he usually is very good at controlling his emotions. She also notes that he usually never talks to royals at all, to which he responds by saying that he got sick of all the barking. She covers her mouth with a fan as she thinks to herself that Max has been acting strange ever since he left Floyd's Manhwa. He then asks her for the facts about the rumors of Dew Valley and she tells him that it is confirmed that the love affair isn't real due to Duke Valiant's ending Sir Rowan a letter to be her partner. This agitates Max, who twitches his face. The owner wonders why Uwe Alien picked Edmund, as despite him being handsome, he is notorious for breaking hearts, to which Max mutters he isn't surprised to hear this considering the guy's face. He then thinks about how ridiculous it is that Uwe Alien likes pretty boys. The owner then continues that Sir Rowan has rejected the offer, to which Max clenches his fist. He then exclaims about how the mere son of an earl dared to reject jovially, and he continues to huff in anger as the owner wonders what Max actually wants. The owner then mentions that the last part of the rumor is that Uwe Alien has been meeting a secret admirer only at night. This rumor was spread by Radian Royal. She then mentions that Radian is cousins with Mikhail. Max then gets mad again at the mention of Mikhail's name. The owner continues about how Mikhail and Jube Alien barely broke up, but Mikhail's cousin is already spreading rumors to smear her name. Max then stands up and asks for a weapon to use against both the cousin's family and for the other dorks that ask to be Lady Employer's partner. She then bows and agrees to this as she refers to him as His Highness Prince Maximilian. He had already left the room before the owner realized she forgot to mention that Duploy and had already bought all this information at the Florian Manor. Jubilian is enjoying some quality time with her father. In reality, she was reluctantly invited to this right after Server Wayne left. She refers to it as a forced and fake quality time. Then asks her again if she has found a partner yet. She is worried that if she says no, he'll begin matchmaking again. She then tells him that she is still thinking it over. He grabs his cup of tea and tells her that if she can't find a partner, she should just let him know. Julian is scared, wondering what her father would do if she ever told him that. Silence ensues before Julian stands up to leave due to the awkwardness. Her father then tells her that he must head out soon as he has to take care of something. He tells her that he must leave to finish warning some people. She is unsure what he is talking about, but tells him to have a safe trip regardless. He then continues that he will be back by dinner and reiterates that he is warning somebody. A horse carriage strides off out of the property as Max is in a tree, noting how long it took for Duke Floydin to leave. He then makes his way into the manor and wonders if Uwe Alien will be in her room. Mentally revisiting the events as of recent, Max's eyes gleam with mysterious intent. Thoughts of the curious Uwe Alien flash in his mind as he mentally remarks on how she lingers in high mind unlike any female before. Mentally revisiting the events as of recent, Max's eyes gleam with mysterious intent. Thoughts of the curious Uwe Alien flash in his mind as the carriage takes off. Max notes that this took long enough. He then hops onto the balcony before stepping into the manor and wondering if she's in her room. He glances around looking for Uwe Alien before thinking she may be in the study. He then stops to wonder if she's already left to go ask someone else to be her partner for the ball. He covers his face as he blushes and reassures himself that it won't be a problem if she goes with someone else. He then hears someone asked what he is doing in this room. He turns in shock to see Uwe Alien crossing her arms at him. He then fully turns his body and asks her where she was. She is in shock for a moment before thinking about how this is really the first thing he asks her. She tells him she was just downstairs, to which he turns saying he understands. She is then annoyed that he is laughing right now and wonders why he is here anyways. She wonders if he really meant what he said in the letter about coming back to see her before telling him her father is not here, to which he tells her he already knows since he saw the Duke leave. She then thinks to herself again about why he is here, then before thinking he may have gotten kicked out of the inn again. She sighs as she already has a lot to deal with right now. He leans over asking her why she is sighing, to which she is shocked at how fast he moves. As he was just on the couch. She tells him she just has a lot on her mind, to which he asks if something is wrong. He asks her to tell him and promises that he won't tell anyone. She stares at him for a moment and then wonders if she'll feel better by telling him. She then gets him to promise not to tell her dad about this. She then tries to make sure he won't say a thing by telling him he'll owe her 100 gold if he does. He then declares he'll give her all he owns. If he even accidentally mentions what she says to her dad, Julian grabs her chin as she tries not to laugh, which makes Max get confused. She thinks in her mind that he is just a bum without a house, betting everything he has before laughing and making sure he is certain about this bet. Max is blushing with his heart beating before saying alright and asking her to hurry up and tell him. As they sit, she mentions that she recently heard negative rumors about her and says that the rumors are about how she is with a mystery man. She mentions she does not care what people think and does not think dating is a bad thing, but the rumors are just not true. She also mentions that because of these rumors, everyone who wanted to be her partner has now left. Max is furious in his mind, thinking all those dudes are imbeciles to fall for a stupid rumor like this. He then thinks about if it were him and what he'd do. He then gets embarrassed for thinking this way before he decides to focus back on the conversation as Juve Alien says she's fine with add a partner. This caused him to ask what the problem is. She then tells him that her father is marrying her off, which causes Max's heart to sink, wondering if she's actually getting married. Tuvaluan talks about seeing the potential suitor list and about how the decision seems to have already been made. Max then gets angry, wondering if his master is really the type of person to marry his daughter off, and if loving his daughter really was just an act. Juvenile then tells him that is why she needs a partner, so that she can avoid being made to see the person her father chose. Max then tells her that there is a suitable partner closer to her than she thinks. The room sparkles as Julian stares at Max, and then Max does the same. She asks if there is someone close, to which Max remains silent before Julian jumps up saying he's right and that there is someone. She grabs his hand, thanking him, saying he has saved her life. He thinks to himself about how being her partner might be annoying, but also about how it wouldn't hurt to be her partner before Juve Alien suddenly mentions someone named Geraldine could be her partner. Who knows if Juvelian will ever realize Max's budding feelings towards the damsel? Will they get together in this life or will they remain clueless to one another's mega hints? Will her father, his master, marry her off, or will Max fight for her love just as a worthy main character should? As in, being naive is cute and all but girl, get the memo. Please. I guess we will soon know. Stay tuned for part 2. But in the meantime, why not try a slightly different revenge-style manhwa? Or what about the crazy princess who faked her death to get away from the plot to kill her? Don't forget to like, comment, share and subscribe.